Have you ever experienced a moment so profound, so perfectly timed, that it couldn't possibly be coincidence? That sudden phone call from someone you were just thinking about or stumbling upon exactly the information you needed without searching for it? What if these moments aren't random at all, but rather the universe speaking directly to you in its own sacred language? Welcome to today's journey into the depths of spiritual awakening and cosmic communication. I'm thrilled you've joined me as we explore how the soul whispers its truths and how the universe conspires to guide us through meaningful synchronicities. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Has this ever happened to you? You're at a crossroads in your life, feeling lost and uncertain, when suddenly a song plays on the radio with lyrics that speak directly to your situation. Or you randomly open a book to find exactly the words you needed to hear. These aren't mere coincidences. They're synchronicities, the universe's way of communicating with you through a language more profound than words. In our noise-filled world, we've forgotten how to listen to the whispers of our soul. Unlike the shouting voices of social media, notifications and endless to-do lists, our deepest wisdom speaks softly, requiring us to quiet the external chaos before we can hear it. This gentle voice doesn't arrive as dramatic revelation, but emerges as subtle intuition in moments of presence and stillness. Stay with me until the end of this series, because what you're about to discover might fundamentally change how you perceive reality. The truth is, we're constantly receiving guidance, but most of us have been conditioned to dismiss these subtle messages as imagination or happenstance. When we begin to recognize the patterns, the repeated numbers, the chance encounters that change our direction, the dreams that offer solutions to waking problems, we start to understand that we exist within a living, breathing conversation with the universe itself. Each synchronicity serves as confirmation that we're seen, heard, and guided by forces beyond our limited perception. Learning to decode this universal language isn't about seeking external validation, but rather about remembering our connection to something vast and intelligent that orchestrates the cosmic dance we're all part of. It's about recognizing that your inner vibration, your thoughts, emotions, and intentions sends ripples through the fabric of reality that return to you as meaningful experiences. What if the answers you've been desperately seeking externally have been whispering to you all along? What if that persistent feeling, that subtle knowing that sometimes contradicts all logical evidence, is actually your most reliable compass? The journey of awakening begins not with acquiring new information, but with remembering how to listen. If these spiritual insights have resonated with your journey, consider subscribing to join our community of seekers. Each new video explores another dimension of consciousness and practical wisdom for awakening. When we truly listen to these whispers, a profound transformation begins to unfold. We start to recognize that our entire reality is actually mirroring back to us our own internal landscape. That difficult coworker who triggers intense emotions. They're reflecting aspects of yourself that need healing. The recurring challenges in relationships, they're revealing patterns within you that seek resolution. Even the seemingly random stranger who offers unexpected kindness is mirroring your own capacity for compassion. This mirror principle isn't about blame or self-criticism. Rather, it's an invitation to radical self-awareness, a journey into understanding how powerfully our inner world shapes our outer experiences. The universe operates through this hidden mechanism of reflection, constantly showing us the truth of our beliefs, expectations, and unresolved emotions through the canvas of our daily lives. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring what these reflections are ultimately guiding us toward. Behind all these mirrors lies something truly extraordinary, a seed of purpose uniquely yours, planted within your soul before you even took your first breath. This purpose isn't something you need to invent or discover through endless searching. It's something to remember, to uncover as you peel away layers of conditioning and societal expectations. Your deepest purpose isn't merely what you do, it's how you express your essence through everything you do. Have you noticed how certain activities make time seem to disappear? How specific challenges, despite their difficulty, feel strangely fulfilling? These are breadcrumbs leading to your soul's purpose, moments when your authentic self aligns with your expression in the world. The most fascinating revelation in this journey is that your purpose often resides at the intersection of joy and meaningful challenge. It's found where your natural gifts meet the world's needs, where your deepest gladness encounters the world's hunger. Your purpose carries both lightness and weight, the lightness of doing what you love and the weight of contribution that matters. Many of us have been taught to seek purpose through achievement or acquisition, the mindset that will find fulfillment once we reach a particular milestone. Yet the truth behind this illusion is that purpose isn't waiting at some distant finish line. It's encoded in your very being, waiting to be embodied right now, in this moment. The journey to uncovering this seed requires honesty, seeing your reflections clearly without distortion and honoring what truly resonates rather than what you've been told should matter. It demands courage to follow your unique path when others might not understand. It involves trusting the process even when the destination isn't fully visible. As you move through life consciously recognizing these mirrors and nurturing your seed of purpose, you'll notice a profound shift. External circumstances that once seemed random begin to reveal their perfect orchestration. People appear precisely when needed. For your growth, challenges arrive not as punishments, but as invitations to expand into greater versions of yourself. This awareness creates a revolutionary impact on how you navigate decisions, relationships, and even difficulties. The mirrors that once seemed to constrain you become doorways to liberation. The purpose that felt elusive becomes a living reality expressed through ordinary moments. The hidden truth is that we're not passive observers in this cosmic dance, but active participants in a co-creative process with the universe itself. Each reflection offers insight, each synchronicity provides direction, and each challenge presents opportunity for greater alignment with your essential nature. If you're resonating with these ideas, write in the comments, "I see the mirrors now," and share one reflection that's been appearing consistently in your life. What do you think it might be showing you about yourself? When we fully embrace our purpose and recognize these mirrors in our lives, we naturally arrive at a profound revelation. We possess an incredible power that's been with us all along, the power of conscious choice. Most people move through life on autopilot, reacting to circumstances based on conditioning, habit, or fear. But there's a revolutionary alternative that transforms us from passive participants into active creators. Every decision you make, from the seemingly insignificant, like what thoughts you entertain upon waking, to the monumental life choices, is shaping your reality in ways more profound than most realize. The mindset shift here is realizing that while we can't always control external events, we always retain the power to choose our response. This is where true freedom resides. Think about a challenging situation you faced recently. Did you react automatically, driven by old patterns? Or did you pause, create space between stimulus and response, and consciously choose your next move? That microscopic gap contains your greatest power for transformation. It's where you shift from being at the effect of life to being at the cause. The impact of this understanding ripples through every dimension of existence. Relationships transform when you choose understanding over judgment. Work becomes meaningful when you choose purpose over obligation. Even suffering changes its character when you choose growth over victimhood. These aren't just philosophical concepts, they're practical tools for navigating reality. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining what actually happens when we make these conscious choices. Behind the scenes of our decision-making lies something even more fundamental: the creative force of thought itself. Our thoughts aren't merely passive observations about reality, they're energetic seeds planted in the fertile soil of possibility. The revelations of both ancient wisdom traditions and cutting-edge quantum physics point to the same truth. Consciousness is creative. What we consistently think about, we bring about, not through magical thinking, but through a complex interplay between perception, focus, energy, and action. Your thoughts literally shape how you experience your world, which aspects you notice, which opportunities you recognize, and which paths you pursue. Consider this: have you ever purchased a certain model of car and suddenly started seeing that same model everywhere? The cars were always there. Your attention simply wasn't tuned to notice them. In the same way, when you hold a thought consistently, you begin to perceive aspects of reality that align with that thought. Your brain's reticular activating system gets programmed to filter for evidence that confirms your dominant thinking patterns. But the journey goes deeper still. Thoughts aren't just mental activities, they're energetic events. Each thought carries a vibration that resonates with similar frequencies in the quantum field. What you think about with emotion and consistency begins to manifest in your experience, not through wishful thinking, but through the natural law of resonance, like attracts like in the realm of consciousness. This understanding transforms thinking from a passive process into a spiritual practice. When you become aware of your thoughts, rather than being submerged in them, you gain the ability to consciously select which thought seeds you'll water with your attention. This doesn't mean toxic positivity or denial of life's challenges. Rather, it means choosing thoughts that empower rather than diminish, that expand rather than contract, that create rather than destroy. The most powerful revelation in this journey of consciousness is that we're not merely passive receivers of life. We're active creators. Our thoughts, charged with emotion and backed by belief, become the blueprints for our experience. This isn't about controlling the universe, it's about dancing with it, co-creating with it through the partnership of consciousness. Ready to continue this exploration of spiritual awakening? Subscribe to go deeper into these timeless truths. This channel is dedicated to illuminating the path of remembrance, from ancient wisdom to lived experience. By cultivating awareness of our thought patterns and making conscious choices about which thoughts we entertain, we participate in the most fundamental creative act possible. We literally shape the fabric of our experience from the inside out. If you've noticed how your thoughts have created patterns in your life, positive or challenging, write in the comments, "I am the architect," and share one thought pattern you're committed to transforming. What new seed are you planting in the garden of your mind? As we cultivate our thoughts as creative forces, we eventually discover that accessing our highest creative potential requires something that seems paradoxical in our hyper-connected world: silence. But this silence I'm speaking of runs much deeper than simply turning down the volume of external noise. True silence is an internal state of being, the presence of pure awareness without the constant commentary of mental chatter. In a culture that bombards us with information, notifications, and endless distractions, finding this gateway of silence has become a revolutionary act. Yet without it, we access only a fraction of our intuitive wisdom and creative potential. Think of silence not as emptiness, but as fullness, a rich field of possibility that exists before thought crystallizes experience into fixed forms. The revelation that many seekers miss is that this silence isn't something we need to search for in remote monasteries or weekend retreats. The temple of silence exists within us, accessible in any moment we choose to enter. Even in the midst of chaos, we can touch this silent center through conscious breathing, through momentary pauses between activities, through the practice of simply witnessing our thoughts, rather than being swept away by them. When we enter this silence regularly, we begin to notice something extraordinary happening. Solutions to complex problems arise effortlessly. Creativity flows without struggle. Insights about ourselves and others emerge with striking clarity. This happens because silence allows us to drop beneath the surface-level thinking into the deeper currents of knowing that have always been available but were drowned out by mental noise. The mindset shift here is profound. Realizing that wisdom doesn't always come from accumulating more information, but often from creating space for what we already know at a soul level to rise into awareness. The insights waiting in silence often carry more transformative power than years of intellectual study. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how silence reveals another fundamental truth about reality. One that liberates us from perhaps our greatest source of suffering. Behind the veil of our conventional understanding lies the revelation that time itself, as we commonly experience it, is largely an illusion. While our minds perceive time as a straight line moving inexorably from past to future, a more expansive perspective reveals time as something far more fluid, a dance of moments, each containing eternity. The past exists primarily as memory, the future as anticipation, but neither has reality except as thoughts in the present moment. The impact of this understanding is immense. Consider how much of our emotional suffering comes from dwelling on regrets about the past or anxiety about the future. We spend countless hours reliving painful memories or worrying about scenarios that may never materialize, all while missing the only moment that truly exists, now. This isn't just philosophical abstraction, it's a practical pathway to freedom. When we fully inhabit the present moment, even for brief intervals, we experience a peculiar timelessness where our usual constraints fall away. Athletes call it the zone. Artists refer to flow state. Meditators describe it as presence, but all point to the same experience, stepping outside linear time into the eternal now. The journey into present moment awareness doesn't mean abandoning responsibility or planning. Rather, it means bringing our full attention to whatever we're doing instead of being mentally elsewhere. It means planning from a centered place rather than from anxiety. It means learning from the past without being imprisoned by it. This shift in relationship with time creates a paradox worth experiencing. When we stop rushing toward the future and fully inhabit the now, time seems to expand. We discover that life isn't measured in length, but in depth, in the quality of our presence rather than the quantity of our activities. Freedom comes not from controlling time, but from dancing with it, recognizing its rhythms and cycles, flowing with its currents rather than struggling against them. Like ancient wisdom keepers understood, there are times for action and times for rest, times for expression and times for receptivity. When we align with these natural cycles rather than forcing our will against them, life unfolds with remarkably less struggle. If you've experienced moments where time seemed to stand still or expand, perhaps while deeply engaged in something you love or witnessing something of extraordinary beauty, share in the comments, "I've touched timelessness," and describe that moment. What does it reveal about the nature of your consciousness? As we dance with time and embrace the present moment, We begin to perceive reality through a more refined lens, one that reveals everything in existence, including ourselves, as pure energy vibrating at different frequencies. This isn't merely a poetic metaphor, but a fundamental revelation supported by quantum physics and ancient wisdom traditions alike. Matter itself is simply energy condensed to a slow vibration, with seemingly solid objects actually consisting mostly of empty space filled with vibrating particles. The transformation this understanding brings to our daily experience is profound. Your thoughts aren't just abstract concepts floating in your mind. They're energetic broadcasts, sending specific frequencies into the field of consciousness. Your emotions aren't just feelings, but energetic states that influence everything around you. Your words and actions emit vibrations that ripple outward, interacting with the energy of others and your environment. This energetic perspective offers a behind-the-scenes look at why certain people and situations consistently appear in your life. The principle of resonance governs these encounters, like attracts like in the realm of energy. When you consistently vibrate at a frequency of anxiety, you'll attract experiences that match this vibration. When you emanate gratitude, more experiences worthy of gratitude find their way to you. This isn't mystical thinking, but rather the impact of energy dynamics operating through perception, attention, and interaction. The mindset shift here involves recognizing yourself as an energy transmitter and receiver rather than a solid, separate entity moving through a static world. You're constantly in energetic conversation with everything around you, whether consciously or not. The question becomes, what frequency are you broadcasting, and what frequencies are you tuned to receive? By becoming aware of your energetic state, you gain the ability to consciously shift your vibration. Simple practices like deep breathing, expressing gratitude, physical movement, or connecting with nature can dramatically alter your energetic signature within minutes. These aren't just feel-good activities, they're practical tools for energetic recalibration that influence what you experience and create. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring the most powerful frequency you can align with the vibration of your authentic purpose. Beyond all the various energies flowing through your experience, there exists a unique inner flame that represents your soul's essential nature and contribution. This purpose isn't something external you need to discover, but rather an internal knowing you need to uncover and express. The journey to understanding purpose often gets misinterpreted as finding the perfect career or achieving specific goals. But the hidden truth is that purpose isn't primarily about what you do. It's about how you be. It's the quality of presence, intention, and energy you bring to everything you do, whether washing dishes or delivering a keynote speech. Purpose is the unique vibration that only you can contribute to the universal symphony. When you align with this inner flame, something remarkable happens. Even challenges become meaningful. Difficulties that once seemed like obstacles transform into opportunities for growth and expression. Actions that previously required tremendous willpower now flow with natural grace and impact. This happens because you're no longer pushing against your natural frequency, but rather allowing it to express itself through you. Many spiritual seekers struggle with identifying their purpose, looking for dramatic signs or burning bushes. Yet purpose often reveals itself more subtly, through the activities that make you lose track of time, the issues that naturally engage your compassion, or the unique way you solve problems and relate to others. Your purpose frequently lives at the intersection of what brings you joy and what meaningfully serves others. The revelations about purpose that most transformational teachers miss is that it's not fixed, but evolving. As you grow in consciousness, your expression of purpose naturally refines and expands. What fulfilled your purpose at 20 may differ from what fulfills it at 40 or 60. The inner flame remains constant, but its expression adapts to your life stage and the world's needs. Living with purpose doesn't mean every moment feels ecstatic or easy. Rather, it means even the difficult moments carry a sense of rightness and contribution. There's a profound difference between the fatigue that comes from purposeful challenge and the exhaustion that comes from purposeless striving. The former energizes even as it tires, the latter depletes without replenishing. The most powerful decision you can make is to allow your unique energetic signature, your purpose, to flow unobstructed through everything you do. This doesn't require dramatic life changes or grand gestures. It simply means bringing your full, authentic presence to each moment, allowing your inner flame to warm whatever space you occupy. If you've experienced moments when you felt completely aligned with your purpose, when action flowed effortlessly and you knew with certainty you were exactly where you needed to be, write in the comments, "My flame is lit," and describe what you were doing during that experience. What does that reveal about your unique, energetic contribution? As our inner flame of purpose guides our path, we naturally begin to encounter another dimension of our consciousness, one that operates beyond the limitations of logic and reasoning. This is intuition, the soul's native intelligence communicating through feelings, images, and subtle guidance that often defies rational explanation. Think of those moments when you just knew something without knowing how you knew it. That's your intuitive faculty at work. In our analytics-obsessed culture, we've been conditioned to dismiss these intuitive flashes as unreliable or insignificant compared to logical thinking. Yet the hidden truth is that intuition accesses information beyond what your conscious mind can process. It's not random or magical. It's drawing on your soul's vast intelligence, processing countless subtle cues and patterns that your rational mind simply isn't designed to track. The breakthrough happens when you recognize intuition not as the enemy of logic, but as its perfect complement. Logic excels at analyzing what's already known, while intuition specializes in navigating uncertainty and complexity. Like having access to both a telescope and a microscope, each perspective reveals different but equally valuable information about reality. What's particularly fascinating about intuitive intelligence is how it communicates, rarely through clear, verbal instructions, but rather through bodily sensations, emotional shifts, symbolic images, or sudden insights that seem to arise from nowhere. The body often becomes the instrument of intuition, that gut feeling, that heaviness in your chest, that inexplicable lightness when something resonates with your truth. Your physical vessel knows things your thinking mind hasn't yet caught up to. The journey of reclaiming this soul intelligence involves learning your unique intuitive language. For some, visual impressions predominate. For others, it's physical sensations or emotional responses. Understanding your particular intuitive signature allows you to distinguish between authentic guidance and fear-based projection, a crucial distinction that many spiritual seekers miss. As you cultivate trust in this inner guidance system, decision-making transforms from an exhausting analytical process to something more fluid and natural. The impact ripples through every aspect of life. Relationships deepen as you sense what's beneath the surface. Creativity flows as you access inspiration beyond conscious thought, and your path unfolds with remarkably less resistance. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring what happens when intuition leads us into territories that challenge our expectations or preferences. This is where we encounter another powerful spiritual revelation, the transformative light of acceptance. True acceptance is perhaps the most misunderstood spiritual principle. Many confuse it with passive resignation or giving up. I guess this is just how things are. But authentic acceptance operates at a much more profound level. It's not about liking or approving of difficult situations, but rather about ceasing the internal war with reality as it presents itself in this moment. The mindset revolution here involves recognizing that resistance to what already is creates a secondary layer of suffering beyond whatever challenge we're facing. When we fight against reality through denial, blame, or endless wishing things were different, we expend enormous energy without changing anything except our own state of exhaustion. Acceptance doesn't mean abandoning positive change or growth. Paradoxically, it establishes the necessary foundation for genuine transformation. Think of it this way: you can't effectively navigate from your current location if you refuse to acknowledge where you actually are on the map. Acceptance is simply truth-seeing, the clear recognition of what is, without the distortion of wishful thinking or fearful avoidance. Behind the scenes of acceptance lies a profound wisdom. We must see clearly before we can change wisely. When we bring compassionate awareness to our current reality without immediately trying to fix or escape it, surprising revelations often emerge. What seemed like an insurmountable problem reveals hidden opportunities. What appeared as a devastating loss unveils unexpected freedom. What felt like unbearable emotion transforms when fully felt rather than resisted. The light of acceptance illuminates everything it touches, not by changing external circumstances, but by transforming our relationship to them. There's a mysterious alchemy that happens when you fully embrace what is. A doorway opens to what could be, not through force, but through allowing. This doesn't mean tolerating abuse or remaining in harmful situations. Quite the opposite. Clear-eyed. Acceptance often reveals exactly what needs to change and provides the grounded energy to make those changes effectively rather than reactively. The revolutionary impact comes from acting from centered clarity rather than desperate resistance. When acceptance becomes your practice, you discover a freedom that doesn't depend on external conditions being perfect. You develop the capacity to remain spacious even amid challenges, to find peace not by controlling circumstances, but by embracing your experience of them with compassion. If you've experienced the liberating power of acceptance in your own life, perhaps with a situation you initially resisted but eventually embraced, leading to unexpected gifts, share in the comments, "Acceptance illuminated my path," and tell us what shifted when you stopped fighting reality and instead brought compassionate awareness to it. Through the illuminating practice of acceptance, we naturally encounter another profound spiritual revelation: the freedom that comes through detachment. Now, this concept is often wildly misunderstood in our culture of attachment and accumulation. Many fear that detachment means becoming cold, distant, or uncaring, abandoning relationships or responsibilities. Nothing could be further from the truth. True detachment isn't about caring less, it's about loving more wisely. It's the profound recognition that we create suffering whenever we confuse loving with possessing, whenever we believe our security depends on controlling outcomes or holding on to specific people, circumstances, or identities. The mindset transformation here involves understanding that everything in life, relationships, successes, even our own bodies, are temporary gifts rather than permanent possessions. Think about how we typically approach what we value. We grasp, we cling, we demand that things stay the same. Yet this very attachment creates an underlying anxiety because deep down we know that everything changes. The revolution of detachment involves loving without clinging, appreciating without demanding, and allowing life to flow through open hands rather than closed fists. This isn't abstract philosophy. It's practical wisdom with immediate impact. When you practice detachment in relationships, you give others the freedom to be themselves rather than what you need them to be. When you practice detachment with outcomes, you can act with full commitment while releasing the desperate need for specific Results. When you practice detachment with possessions, you can enjoy them fully without fearing their loss. Behind the scenes of detachment lies a counterintuitive truth. Genuine security comes not from holding tight, but from trusting the flow. When you're not identified with temporary circumstances, you discover something more stable at your core, an unchanging awareness that remains constant amid life's inevitable fluctuations. From this grounded center, you can engage fully with life while remaining inwardly free. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how detachment enables us to navigate one of life's fundamental dynamics, the dance of balance. Every aspect of existence moves in rhythmic polarities: action and rest, connection and solitude, joy and sorrow, creation and dissolution. Yet our conditioning often has us chasing one pole while rejecting its opposite, creating internal conflict and resistance to life's natural flow. The journey toward harmony involves recognizing that balance isn't static, but dynamic, not the absence of extremes, but the wisdom to dance between them with awareness. Think of a tightrope walker. Their balance isn't rigid, it's fluid, responsive, constantly making micro-adjustments. Similarly, living in balance means developing the flexibility to move with life's natural rhythms rather than fighting against them. The revelation that transforms our relationship with balance is understanding that opposing forces aren't enemies but partners in the cosmic dance. Light needs shadow to be seen. Strength emerges through challenge. Connection becomes meaningful against the backdrop of solitude. When we honor both sides of each polarity, we stop exhausting ourselves fighting against necessary cycles and instead learn to work with them. This wisdom appears throughout nature, in the alternation of seasons, in the cycle of day and night, in the rhythm of breath. The oak tree doesn't resist winter by trying to keep its leaves. It wisely releases them, conserving energy until spring returns. The ocean doesn't fight the tide's retreat, but trusts its inevitable return. These aren't poetic metaphors, but practical blueprints for sustainable living. The transformative impact of embracing life's polarities touches everything, from daily rhythms to career trajectories to spiritual growth. When you honor the need for both productivity and rest, you avoid burnout. When you welcome both connection and solitude, relationships deepen. When you allow both structure and spontaneity, creativity flourishes. When you make space for both joy and sorrow, emotional resilience grows. What's particularly fascinating is how these polarities operate not just sequentially, but simultaneously. We often need to hold seemingly contradictory truths at once. The spiritual journey involves developing the capacity to embrace paradox, to be both committed and detached, both structured and flexible, both self-responsible and surrendered to something greater. This isn't indecision or inconsistency, but a higher integration that transcends either-or thinking. The intelligence behind balanced living isn't about perfect equilibrium, but about responding appropriately to what each moment calls for. Sometimes life requires bold action, other times patient waiting, sometimes clear boundaries, other times generous flexibility. The wisdom lies in discerning which quality serves the highest good in each situation, rather than rigidly applying the same approach to everything. If you've experienced the liberation that comes through practicing detachment while still remaining fully engaged with life, or if you've noticed how honoring natural rhythms brings more flow to your experience, share in the comments. I'm dancing with life, and describe one area where embracing opposing forces has created more harmony in your journey. As we dance with the rhythms of life and honor its natural polarities, we encounter another profound dimension of our consciousness, one that often gets overshadowed in our hyper-rational culture. This is the intelligence of the heart. For centuries, we've been conditioned to believe that the mind is the supreme center of knowing, relegating the heart to merely a pump or a source. Yet recent discoveries in neurocardiology have confirmed what ancient wisdom traditions always understood. The heart contains its own complex neural network, a mini-brain that processes information independently from the cerebral brain. The revelation transforming our understanding of consciousness is that the heart possesses a unique form of intelligence that complements and balances the mind's reasoning. Where the mind excels at analyzing parts, the heart perceives wholes. Where the mind calculates probability, the heart recognizes possibility. Where the mind doubts and questions, the heart often simply knows. This isn't romantic poetry. It's the architecture of a multidimensional awareness. Think about significant decisions you've made in your life. The most impactful ones likely weren't made through logical analysis alone, but involved a deep resonance that you felt at a heart level. That feeling of rightness that transcends pros and cons lists isn't irrational. It's the heart's intelligence communicating with you through the language of coherence and resonance rather than logic and reason. The journey toward wholeness involves integrating these two powerful centers of intelligence rather than having them operate in opposition. When heart and mind work in partnership, a higher wisdom emerges that neither could access alone. The mind provides clarity, precision, and discernment, while the heart offers depth, connectivity, and holistic understanding. Together, they create a balanced foundation for navigating life's complexities. Behind the scenes of heart intelligence lies its remarkable capacity to perceive fields and patterns beyond what the analytical mind can grasp. Research has shown that the heart's electromagnetic field is much stronger than the brain's and extends well beyond the physical body. This field appears capable of directly interacting with the fields of others and the environment in ways we're only beginning to understand scientifically, but have intuitively known throughout human history. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring one of the heart's most profound capabilities, one that liberates us from perhaps our heaviest burdens. This is the transformative power of forgiveness. Few spiritual practices are as misunderstood yet as genuinely life-changing as authentic forgiveness. Many people reject forgiveness because they confuse it with condoning harm or reconciling with someone who hurt them. But true forgiveness has nothing to do with approving harmful actions or necessarily maintaining relationships with those who caused injury. At its core, forgiveness is a profound act of self-liberation, the conscious release of energy trapped in resentment, bitterness, and past grievances. The mindset revolution here involves recognizing that holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. When we refuse to forgive, the primary person imprisoned by those chains is ourselves. The energy required to maintain grievances, constantly replaying scenarios, justifying positions, fueling anger, creates an enormous drain on our life force that could otherwise be directed toward creativity, joy, and authentic connection. The impact of withholding forgiveness often operates beneath conscious awareness, influencing our physical health, emotional patterns, and even our ability to trust and connect with others. Research consistently shows connections between unresolved resentment and everything from immune suppression to cardiovascular issues. What's particularly fascinating is how forgiveness works, not just on psychological levels, but as a literal energetic release. Many people report physical sensations of lightness or expansion when they genuinely forgive. The journey of forgiveness isn't about denying pain or pretending harm didn't occur. Quite the opposite. It begins with honest acknowledgement of hurt and its effects. The transformation happens when we choose to stop defining ourselves by those wounds and instead reclaim our power from situations that may have happened years or even decades ago, but still occupy emotional real estate in our present. This doesn't mean forgiveness is easy or happens all at once. For significant injuries, it often unfolds as a process rather than an event, with layers of healing that reveal themselves gradually. Sometimes we need to forgive the same person or situation multiple times as new levels of impact become visible. What matters isn't the timeline, but the intention to release yourself from carrying burdens that no longer serve your growth. The revelatory aspect of forgiveness that many miss is that it doesn't require the other person's participation, apology, or even awareness. While reconciliation takes two willing participants, forgiveness is an internal act of liberation that you can perform unilaterally. This understanding restores tremendous power to individuals who might otherwise feel that their healing depends on someone else's choices. Through genuine forgiveness, we open ourselves to possibilities unconstrained by old wounds. Relationships transform, creativity flows more freely, and we become available to the present moment instead of constantly filtering experience through past hurts. The heart, unburdened by accumulated grievances, can once again fully engage with life's offerings. If you've experienced the liberation that comes through forgiveness, whether forgiving others or yourself, share in the comments, "I've released the chains," and describe how it felt to free yourself from energy trapped in resentment. What opened up in your life when you chose this path of liberation? Through the healing practice of forgiveness, we naturally open ourselves to one of the most transformative forces available to human consciousness: gratitude. Far more than a polite social courtesy or temporary feeling, gratitude functions as a genuine alchemical force, transmuting our perception from seeing lack to recognizing abundance. The mindset revolution here involves understanding that gratitude isn't merely a response to favorable circumstances, but a lens through which we actively choose to view reality. What makes gratitude so powerful is that it operates simultaneously on multiple levels, psychologically rewiring neural pathways, emotionally shifting our state, and energetically altering our vibrational signature. Research consistently shows that a regular gratitude practice literally reshapes brain function, strengthening neural circuits associated with positive outlook and resilience, while weakening pathways linked to negativity bias and stress reactivity. The hidden truth behind gratitude's effectiveness is that what we focus on expands in our experience. When we habitually orient our attention toward what's lacking, missing, or wrong, those perceptions dominate our reality. But when we deliberately shift attention to what's present, working, and available, an entirely different landscape emerges, not because external circumstances necessarily change, but because our relationship to them transforms. This isn't about toxic positivity or denying legitimate challenges. Rather, it's about developing the capacity to hold multiple truths simultaneously, acknowledging difficulties while also recognizing the gifts, lessons, and resources that coexist alongside them. The most powerful gratitude practices often emerge precisely in difficult circumstances, not despite them, but through them. Behind the scenes of gratitude lies its remarkable capacity to alter our energetic state almost instantaneously. You can test this for yourself right now. Pause for a moment and genuinely call to mind 3 things you're deeply grateful for, allowing yourself to fully feel that appreciation. Notice how your body responds, how your breathing changes, how your emotional tone shifts. This isn't imagination, but a measurable energetic recalibration that impacts everything from heart rate variability to immune function. As you cultivate this practice consistently, gratitude becomes less of an occasional exercise and more of a default operating system, a way of moving through the world that naturally attracts experiences resonant with that frequency. The journey unfolds as a beautiful upward spiral where gratitude leads to more experiences worthy of gratitude, which deepens the practice further. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring what emerges when gratitude leads us into profound stillness, the revolutionary practice of silence. In our hyper-connected, information-saturated culture, nothing feels more countercultural than intentional silence. We're bombarded with noise from the moment we wake until we fall asleep. External sounds, digital distractions, and perhaps most significantly, the incessant chatter of our own minds. Yet within silence lies a dimension of wisdom that simply cannot be accessed through words, concepts, or analysis. Silence holds the space where truth is felt rather than thought, where direct experience replaces second-hand knowledge, where communion with life replaces mere communication about it. This isn't empty theory, but a practical pathway to clarity, creativity, and deeper connection with both yourself and others. The revelation that transforms our relationship with silence is recognizing it not as absence, but as presence, not what remains when everything else is removed, but a living field of awareness that contains infinite potential. Like the space between musical notes that allows melody to exist, silence provides the necessary context for meaning to emerge. Without it, even the most profound words become mere noise. What's particularly fascinating is how silence affects our consciousness. Neuroscience research shows that regular periods of silence stimulate hippocampal neurogenesis, the birth of new brain cells, reduce stress hormones, and enhance cognitive integration. Beyond these measurable benefits lies something more mysterious, the way silence creates space for insights that simply cannot arise amid constant stimulation and mental activity. The impact of cultivating silence extends far beyond personal well-being. In relationships, learning to be comfortably silent with another person creates depth that endless conversation cannot. In creative pursuits, silent pauses allow inspiration to emerge from beyond analytical thinking. In decision-making, moments of stillness often provide clarity that hours of deliberation fail to deliver. The transformational journey into silence doesn't require dramatic life changes or retreat from the world. It begins with simple practices, perhaps 5 minutes of sitting quietly each morning, taking short pauses between activities, or deliberately turning off inputs while driving or walking. What matters isn't the duration, but the quality of attention you bring to these silent intervals. As silence becomes a more familiar territory, you'll likely notice something remarkable. The space between thoughts gradually expands, revealing a dimension of awareness that exists prior to and beyond thinking. This isn't emptiness but fullness, the ground of being from which all creativity, insight, and authentic connection arise. The most revolutionary aspect of silence is how it subtly shifts your center of gravity from identifying with the contents of consciousness, thoughts, emotions, sensations, to resting as the field of awareness in which all these experiences arise. From this spacious perspective, life's challenges lose much of their overwhelming quality. You discover the ability to respond rather than react, to witness without being consumed. If you've experienced moments when silence revealed something that words couldn't express, perhaps a sudden insight, a deep connection, or a sense of profound peace, share in the comments. Silence spoke to me, and describe what emerged in that sacred space when the usual noise subsided. How did that experience change your perception? Through the revelatory practice of silence, we naturally encounter aspects of ourselves that often remain hidden in the noise of everyday life. What psychologists and spiritual traditions alike call the shadow. Our shadow contains all the disowned parts of our psyche, fears we don't want to face, desires we judge as inappropriate, traits we've rejected, and wounds we've buried. Many spiritual seekers make the critical mistake of trying to transcend or eliminate these shadow aspects, pursuing only love and light while suppressing everything. That doesn't fit their spiritual ideal, but the hidden truth that transforms the spiritual journey is that genuine integration comes not from eliminating the shadow, but from illuminating it with awareness and compassion. What we resist inevitably persists. What we embrace with understanding transforms. The mindset revolution here involves recognizing that wholeness doesn't mean perfection. It means including all aspects of your humanity within your conscious awareness. Think about those moments when you find yourself suddenly triggered by someone's behavior, reacting with intensity that seems disproportionate to the situation. These emotional hotspots often reveal shadow material. You're seeing in others what you've denied in yourself. The journey of shadow work isn't about dwelling in darkness, but about retrieving the energy and authentic power that gets trapped when we fragment ourselves through rejection and denial. Behind the scenes of shadow integration lies a fascinating paradox. What we judge most harshly in ourselves often contains tremendous gifts and strengths when properly understood and channeled. The anger we suppress might contain righteous boundaries and passion. The sadness we avoid might hold our capacity for deep empathy. The desire we condemn might carry creative energy and life force. Even our most challenging traits carry wisdom when approached with curiosity rather than judgment. The impact of shadow work ripples through every dimension of life. Relationships deepen as we stop projecting unacknowledged parts of ourselves onto others. Creativity expands as we access previously unavailable aspects of our psyche. Authenticity flourishes as we no longer need to maintain a carefully curated self-image. There's an immense liberation in no longer needing to hide parts of yourself from yourself. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how shadow integration becomes a catalyst for the broader awakening process. Unlike popular depictions in spiritual literature, awakening isn't typically a single dramatic event, but rather an unfolding journey, the gradual recognition of our true nature beyond conditioned identity. It's less about achieving something new and more about uncovering what has always been present beneath layers of accumulated conditioning. The awakening journey often begins with questioning what we've previously taken for granted. Our beliefs about who we are, what life is, what matters, what's possible. These questions typically arise during pivotal life experiences, sometimes through profound joy or connection, sometimes through suffering or loss. The common thread is that something disrupts our familiar patterns enough to create an opening for deeper truth to emerge. What's particularly fascinating about the awakening process is how it tends to unfold in spirals rather than straight lines. We revisit similar themes at progressively deeper levels throughout our journey. Each cycle brings more clarity as another layer of illusion dissolves in the light of awareness. The transformation doesn't happen all at once because our systems need time to integrate each revelation and reorganize accordingly. The revelatory aspect of awakening that many spiritual teachings miss is that it's not about becoming something other than what you are. It's about recognizing your original nature that's been obscured by conditioning, trauma, societal programming, and mistaken identity. The self you've been seeking was never lost. It was only forgotten. Awakening is remembering what you've always been beneath the accumulated stories about who you think you are. This journey inevitably involves both exhilarating freedom and challenging disorientation as familiar reference points dissolve. The ego structure that provided a sense of stability and certainty begins to be recognized as just one aspect of a much vaster identity. This transition can feel like dying before you're reborn, because in a sense, that's exactly what's happening. The separate self isn't annihilated, but rather recognized as just one expression of something far more expansive. What makes this process sustainable is approaching it with gentleness and patience, rather than forcing or striving. Awakening unfolds according to its own organic timing, not according to the ego's demands or expectations. Each person's journey is uniquely their own, shaped by their particular conditioning, karma, temperament, and life circumstances. There's no single correct path or timeline for this unfolding. The most beautiful aspect of the awakening process is how it naturally expresses itself through ordinary life. As awareness expands, you don't necessarily need to change your external circumstances, though some changes may organically occur. Instead, you bring a profoundly different quality of presence to whatever is happening. Washing dishes becomes as sacred as meditation. Difficult conversations become opportunities for compassionate truth. Challenges become doorways to deeper surrender. If you've experienced moments of awakening, perhaps glimpses where the separate self seemed to dissolve, where reality appeared suddenly fresh and vivid, or where you recognized yourself as awareness rather than the content of awareness, write in the comments, "I've glimpsed my true nature," and describe what shifted in your perception during that experience. What felt fundamentally different about reality in those moments? As we journey through the awakening process, we inevitably encounter moments where we reach the limits of our personal control and understanding. These thresholds aren't failures, but invitations into perhaps the most counterintuitive spiritual revelation, the profound power of surrender. In a culture that worships control, achievement, and self-determination, surrender is often misunderstood as weakness or defeat. Nothing could be further from the truth. True surrender isn't about giving up or submitting to external authority. It's the deep recognition that a greater wisdom is at work in the universe than our limited ego perspective can comprehend. It means releasing the exhausting illusion that we can and should control everything, an illusion that creates immense suffering as we struggle against the natural flow of life. The mindset revolution here involves discovering that in this yielding comes a paradoxical power. Not the power to force outcomes, but the freedom to dance with what is. Think about how we typically approach challenges. We analyze, strategize, push, manipulate, expending tremendous energy trying to bend reality to our will. Yet often, our greatest breakthroughs come precisely when we exhaust all our strategies and finally let go. That moment of surrender creates an opening where new possibilities can emerge that our controlling mind couldn't access or even imagine. Behind the scenes of surrender lies a profound truth. Much of our suffering stems not from circumstances themselves, but from our resistance to them. When we fight against what is already happening, we create a secondary layer of tension, anxiety, and frustration on top of the original situation. Surrender cuts through this added suffering by accepting the present reality as the starting point for any authentic response. The impact of embracing surrender touches everything. Relationships heal when we stop trying to change others. Creativity flows when we release rigid expectations. Healing accelerates when we stop fighting our emotions. Intuition strengthens when we quiet the controlling mind. Even physical wellness responds to this shift, as the chronic stress of resistance gives way to the physiological harmony of acceptance. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring what surrender ultimately makes space for, the emergence of our soul's authentic purpose beyond the achievements and goals we've been conditioned to pursue. 1. Of the most liberating revelations on the spiritual journey is discovering that your deepest purpose isn't about what you accomplish, but about the quality of presence you bring to life. Our achievement-oriented culture constantly reinforces the notion that purpose means reaching specific milestones. career success, financial benchmarks, relationship status, or social recognition. Yet behind this conditioning lies a more fundamental truth. Your soul's purpose transcends all external markers of success. It's less about what you do and more about how you express your essence through everything you do. The transformation begins when we shift from seeking purpose outside ourselves to recognizing it as the natural expression of our authentic nature. Purpose isn't something you need to hunt down, figure out, or construct. It emerges organically when you align with who you truly are, rather than conforming to external expectations or societal templates for success. What's particularly fascinating is how this shift affects our relationship with achievement itself. External accomplishments don't disappear from importance. They simply find their proper place in a larger context. When purpose is anchored in presence and authentic expression rather than outcomes alone, even ordinary activities become infused with meaning. Washing dishes can be as purposeful as writing a book when done with full awareness and genuine care. The journey toward living from soul purpose often involves a profound reimagining of success itself. Questions shift from "what should I achieve" to "how can I serve?" and from "what will bring recognition" to "what brings me alive and contributes to others." This isn't about abandoning goals or ambitions, but rather grounding them in something more essential than ego gratification or social validation. The revelatory aspect of purpose beyond achievement is that it's available in every moment, not just in some distant future when all conditions are perfect. Your deepest purpose is being fulfilled whenever you're fully present, acting from integrity, expressing your unique gifts, and contributing to the greater whole in ways both large and small. This understanding liberates tremendous energy previously trapped in striving and allows for a more sustainable, joyful engagement with life. Living from this soul-aligned purpose creates a beautiful paradox. Goals and achievements often manifest more naturally when they're not burdened with carrying our entire sense of meaning and worth. When we approach objectives as expressions of purpose rather than its source, we bring a different quality of energy to our pursuits. More flow, less force, more creativity, less control, more authenticity, less performance. The impact of this shift extends far beyond individual fulfillment. Our world desperately needs people expressing their authentic purpose rather than merely chasing conventional success. Each person living from their true nature contributes something irreplaceable to the collective, a unique medicine that can only come through their particular combination of gifts, experiences, and perspectives. If you've experienced moments when you felt completely aligned with your deeper purpose, not because of what you accomplished, but because of the quality of presence you brought to a situation, share in the comments. I've touched my essence, and describe what that moment revealed about your authentic nature beyond achievement. How did it feel different from goal-oriented striving? As we align with our authentic purpose beyond achievement, we naturally encounter the most fundamental power in the universe, love in its purest form. This isn't the romanticized version of love we see in media or the conditional affection we often experience in relationships. True love is something far more profound, the very energy of creation itself, the force that binds atoms, births stars, and weaves the intricate tapestry of life. The mindset transformation here involves recognizing that love isn't merely an emotion we feel, but a fundamental frequency we can embody and transmit. When we experience love in its unconditioned state, we discover that it doesn't possess or demand, but liberates and empowers. It doesn't deplete when given, but multiplies. It doesn't bind through attachment, but connects through freedom. This revelation transforms how we relate to everything: ourselves, others, challenges, even apparent enemies. We begin to understand that loving isn't something we do occasionally, but rather our essential nature expressing itself through us. Think about those rare moments when you've experienced love without agenda or expectation. Perhaps gazing at a sleeping child, being moved by extraordinary beauty, or feeling profound connection with another being. In those moments, something shifts in your consciousness. The boundaries between self and other soften. Time seems to expand. A sense of rightness and completion permeates everything. This isn't coincidental. You're temporarily accessing your natural state beneath the conditioned mind. Behind the scenes of this transformative force lies a profound truth. Love isn't something to be sought or earned, but rather uncovered as our original nature. All spiritual traditions, despite their apparent differences, point to this same revelation, that beneath our fears, wounds, and conditioning lives an innate capacity for boundless love that requires no external validation or reason. The journey involves removing the obstacles to this natural expression rather than trying to manufacture love through effort. The impact of embodying this frequency touches everything. Healing accelerates, creativity flourishes, relationships deepen, and even physical reality seems to respond differently. Research in fields from neuroscience to quantum physics increasingly validates what wisdom traditions have always taught, that love creates measurable effects not just psychologically but energetically, affecting everything from heart coherence to cellular function to electromagnetic fields. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring what emerges when we fully align with love's transformative power, the development of authentic faith. Unlike popular misconceptions, true faith isn't blind belief in unverifiable claims or desperate hope against evidence. It's a profound inner knowing that transcends both doubt and certainty, the soul's recognition of order amid apparent chaos and meaning within mystery. This faith doesn't arise from doctrine or dogma, but from direct experience of something beyond the mind's comprehension, yet undeniable to the heart's perception. It's the awareness that reality is fundamentally trustworthy, despite its inevitable challenges, and that a deeper intelligence operates through all of existence, including our own lives. The transformation begins when we shift from faith as intellectual assent to faith as experiential knowing, from believing in something to recognizing through something. This knowing doesn't eliminate life's difficulties or guarantee specific outcomes, but it provides the courage to move through challenges with trust rather than contracting in fear. Like a tree with deep roots can withstand powerful storms, a person grounded in authentic faith maintains inner stability even amid external turbulence. What's particularly fascinating is how this faith operates beneath conscious awareness, influencing our fundamental orientation to life. Without it, we tend to approach existence defensively, protecting, controlling, resisting what feels threatening. With it, we navigate with a basic trust that allows for genuine surrender, creativity, and presence. This shift isn't about denying reality's challenges, but about perceiving them within a larger context of meaning and purpose. The revelatory aspect of faith that many spiritual teachings miss is that it's not primarily about beliefs, but about relationship, a lived connection with the mystery at life's core. This relationship evolves through direct experience rather than conceptual understanding. Each time we follow intuitive guidance that proves accurate, witness meaningful synchronicities, or experience unexpected grace in difficult circumstances, our faith deepens not as belief, but as recognition. This faith carries a paradoxical quality, simultaneously humble about what we can know intellectually while confident in what we've experienced directly. It holds questions and certainty together, not as contradictions, but as complementary aspects of a mature spiritual orientation. The humility creates openness to new understanding, The confidence provides stability amid life's inevitable uncertainties. The journey toward authentic faith often involves periods of darkness and doubt, what mystics have called the dark night of the soul, where familiar reference points dissolve and we're invited into deeper trust. These challenging passages, while uncomfortable, often catalyze the most profound spiritual maturation. We discover that faith isn't the absence of doubt, but rather the willingness to remain open and trusting even when doubt arises. If you've experienced moments when you felt this deeper knowing, perhaps during a significant life transition, when facing a difficult decision, or in the midst of apparent chaos, share in the comments, "I've known beyond knowing," and describe what that inner certainty felt like compared to intellectual understanding. How did this faith guide you when logical analysis reached its limits? As we cultivate this authentic faith, we naturally encounter another dimension of our spiritual power, the creative force of conscious intention. Far more than positive thinking or wishful visualization, intention is the directed focus of consciousness that actively participates in shaping reality. The mindset revolution here involves recognizing that intention isn't merely a thought, but a multidimensional force that aligns your entire being, thoughts, emotions, energy, and actions toward a clear vision or outcome. Unlike casual wishing or vague hoping, true intention carries a particular energetic signature that the universe recognizes and responds to. It combines clarity of vision with emotional resonance and aligned action. Think about those moments when you felt absolutely clear and congruent about something you wanted to create or experience, not from desperate wanting, but from centered knowing. There's a distinct feeling of internal alignment, as if every cell in your body is oriented in the same direction. This coherence creates a magnetic field that begins organizing reality around it in ways that often transcend logical explanation. The hidden truth behind intention's power is that consciousness itself is inherently creative. The quantum field responds to focused attention, reorganizing probability into actuality. But here's the crucial distinction many manifestation teachings miss. The most powerful intentions emerge not from ego desires, but from your authentic center, aligned with your soul's purpose and the greater good. When you set intentions from this place, rather than from lack, fear, or comparison, you tap into a creative current much larger than your individual will. Behind the scenes of effective intention lies the principle of resonance. You don't actually have to force outcomes or manipulate circumstances. Instead, you adjust your internal frequency to match the experience you're calling forth. This involves cultivating the thoughts, emotions, and vibrational state that would naturally accompany your vision as if it were already manifest. The external then begins mirroring this internal reality through what appears as synchronicity, opportunity, and fortuitous timing. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring what often blocks our intentions from manifesting, our inability to let go of what no longer serves us. Perhaps the most profound paradox on the spiritual journey is that our capacity to create is directly proportional to our willingness to release. Letting go creates the necessary space for new possibilities to emerge, yet this surrender is precisely what our security-seeking minds resist most fiercely. The transformational insight here involves understanding that everything in nature operates through cycles of holding on and letting go. Trees release their leaves in autumn to conserve energy for new growth. Animals shed old skin or shells to allow for expansion. Even on a cellular level, your body constantly releases what's no longer needed to make room for regeneration. These aren't just poetic metaphors, but fundamental patterns that govern all of existence, including our consciousness. The journey of intentional letting go touches every dimension of life, releasing relationships that have fulfilled their purpose, shedding beliefs that limit rather than serve, abandoning identities that have become too small for your expanding awareness, surrendering control over outcomes you cannot determine. Each release, while often uncomfortable, creates essential space for something new to enter. What makes letting go particularly challenging is that we're neurologically wired to prefer the familiar, even when it causes suffering, over the unknown. Our brains interpret uncertainty as potential danger, yet the revelations that transform our lives almost invariably arrive through doorways we didn't plan or control. The most significant breakthroughs often emerge precisely when we release our grip on how things should unfold. The mindset shift that facilitates authentic letting go involves recognizing that releasing isn't losing, but exchanging, trading what no longer serves for what genuinely nourishes, exchanging the known but limiting for the unknown but expansive. This isn't about indiscriminate abandonment, but discerning release, consciously choosing what to let go of based on whether it aligns with your deepest truth and highest evolution. Perhaps the most liberating aspect of this practice is discovering that what truly belongs in your life doesn't require white-knuckle gripping. What's genuinely yours will remain or return in its perfect timing. What's not meant for you will naturally fall away, however tightly you try to hold on. This understanding transforms letting go from fearful loss to faithful surrender, trusting that what's released creates space for something more aligned with who you're becoming. The impact of mastering this art extends beyond individual circumstances to your entire orientation toward existence. Rather than approaching life as a series of acquisitions to secure and protect, you begin experiencing it as a flowing river, receiving fully in each moment while allowing everything to pass through open hands. This fluidity doesn't diminish your experience, but rather intensifies it, as each moment is appreciated for exactly what it is without the burden of permanence. This dance between conscious intention and willing release creates a beautiful rhythm in the spiritual journey, the inhale of calling forth what you desire, followed by the exhale of letting go of how it should manifest. Both are essential. Without clear intention, we drift without direction. Without letting go, we strangle the very possibilities we wish to create. If you've experienced the paradoxical power of intentional release, perhaps a time when letting go of something you thought you needed actually created space for something far better to enter, share in the comments, "I release to receive," and describe what this exchange taught you about the relationship between surrender and creation. How did letting go become a doorway to something new? Through this dance of intention and release, we discover another profound dimension of our consciousness, the wisdom of inner silence. Beyond the constant chatter of the mind lies a field of pure awareness that remains largely untapped in our noise-filled lives. The mindset transformation here involves recognizing that this silence isn't empty space to be filled, but rather a profound fullness, the very ground of being from which all creativity, insight, and renewal naturally emerge. Most people never experience this dimension because they're constantly immersed in mental activity, planning, analyzing, remembering, worrying, creating such persistent inner noise that the deeper wisdom can't be heard. It's like trying to see stars at noon or hear a whisper at a rock concert. The revelatory shift happens when we realize that solutions to our most complex problems, inspirations for our creative endeavors, and guidance for our difficult decisions already exist in this field of silence, waiting to be accessed. Think about those moments when your greatest insights have arrived. Rarely do they come through forced thinking, but rather in moments of mental relaxation, perhaps while walking in nature, showering, or waking from sleep. These aren't coincidences, but glimpses of how consciousness naturally works when we step out of its way. The wisdom we seek doesn't need to be manufactured through effort, but allowed to emerge through receptive awareness. Behind the scenes of this inner silence lies a fascinating truth. Your mind's constant activity isn't adding to your intelligence, but often obscuring it. Research in neuroscience increasingly confirms what meditation traditions have taught for millennia, that mental quieting activates different brain networks associated with insight, intuition, and holistic perception. When the analytical mind temporarily steps back, a different kind of knowing steps forward. The impact of cultivating this inner silence touches every dimension of life. Decision-making becomes clearer when not clouded by excessive thinking. Creativity flows more naturally when not forced through mental striving. Emotional resilience strengthens as you access the witnessing awareness beneath reactivity. Even physical well-being responds as the chronic stress of mental noise gives way to the regulatory balance of inner quiet. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this inner silence becomes the foundation for genuine transformation. Perhaps the most significant revelation on the spiritual journey is discovering that true transformation happens from within. While we often seek change through external adjustments, new relationships, locations, careers, or appearances, lasting evolution emerges only through inner alchemy. This ancient metaphor of alchemy perfectly captures the process. Just as medieval alchemists sought to transmute base metals into gold, spiritual transformation involves converting the lead of unconscious patterns, limiting beliefs, and reactive emotions into the gold of expanded awareness, authentic expression, and conscious response. The journey isn't about adding something new, but rather about purifying and elevating what already exists within you. What's particularly fascinating is how this alchemical process often begins with crisis, periods of disruption, loss, or challenge that shake the foundations of our existing structures. These difficult passages aren't punishments or failures, but necessary catalysts, creating cracks in our previous identity through which new light can enter. Just as the caterpillar must dissolve within the chrysalis before emerging as butterfly, transformational growth typically involves a phase of disintegration before reintegration at a higher level. The mindset revolution here involves recognizing that discomfort and uncertainty aren't obstacles to transformation, but essential components of it. When everything feels stable and predictable, we tend to maintain existing patterns even if they limit us. It's precisely when our familiar references dissolve that we become available to profound reinvention. This doesn't mean seeking suffering, but rather understanding its potential value when it naturally arises. Behind the scenes of lasting transformation lies a crucial distinction between change and evolution. Change modifies external circumstances or behaviors without shifting underlying consciousness, creating temporary results that often revert back when willpower fades. Evolution, in contrast, alters the fundamental ground from which experiences and behaviors arise, creating sustainable transformation that doesn't require constant effort to maintain. This alchemical process unfolds through distinct phases that mirror the ancient formulation: the nigredo, blackening, where old structures break down; the albedo, whitening, where new understanding emerges; and the rubedo, reddening, where integration creates a higher synthesis. Each phase serves an essential purpose, with the darkness of deconstruction being just as valuable as the light of new insight. The revelatory aspect of inner alchemy that many miss is that you don't need to force this process. Your soul naturally seeks evolution. Your role isn't to make transformation happen through willpower, but to cooperate with the intelligent unfolding already underway within you. This cooperation involves creating conditions that support rather than obstruct this natural movement, practices that quiet the mind, honest, self-reflection, willingness to face shadow material, and courage to release what no longer serves. If you've experienced this alchemical transformation in your own life, perhaps through a challenging period that ultimately led to profound inner evolution, share in the comments, "I've been transformed through fire," and describe what shifted within you that made all the difference compared to merely changing external circumstances. How did inner alchemy create lasting transformation where willpower alone couldn't? Through this alchemical process of transformation, we encounter perhaps the most profound shift in consciousness possible: awakening to presence. This revolutionary insight fundamentally changes our relationship with existence itself by revealing that we are not primarily our thoughts, emotions, or experiences, but rather the awareness within which all these phenomena arise. The mindset transformation here involves recognizing yourself as the spacious context rather than the changing content of consciousness. Most people spend their entire lives completely identified with the stream of thoughts flowing through their minds, believing "I am angry" rather than "I notice anger arising," or "I am a failure" rather than "I notice thoughts of inadequacy appearing." This fusion with mental content creates tremendous suffering as we're tossed about by every passing thought and emotion, mistaking the weather for the sky itself. The awakening occurs when we recognize that beneath all the mental fluctuations exists a dimension of consciousness that remains unchanged, a witnessing presence that observes but isn't defined by philosophical concept, but a directly accessible experience available whenever you step back from thought and rest, as the awareness that perceives thinking happening. Behind the scenes of this awakening lies a profound revelation. You are not who you've been told you are or who you've believed yourself to be. Your essential nature isn't a collection of memories, beliefs, and personality traits, but rather the luminous awareness in which all these temporary phenomena appear and disappear. This doesn't negate your human individuality, but places it within a much vaster context of being. The impact of this recognition touches everything. Anxiety diminishes when you're no longer identified with fearful thoughts. Resilience grows when you recognize that circumstances may change, but your essential nature remains untouched. Creativity flourishes when you access the spacious awareness beyond conditioned thinking. Even relationships transform as you relate from presence rather than personality, seeing others' essential nature beyond their momentary behaviors. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this awakened presence naturally expresses itself through another dimension of our being: heart-centered intelligence. Beyond both the analytical mind and witnessing awareness exists the heart's unique way of knowing, a direct perception that feels resonance rather than calculating outcomes, that recognizes truth through coherence rather than analysis. While modern culture almost exclusively validates rational intelligence, the heart possesses its own sophisticated knowing apparatus that operates through different mechanisms. Research in neurocardiology has confirmed that the heart contains its own complex neural network that processes information independently from the brain, communicating its insights through feelings of resonance, expansion, or contraction that we experience as intuitive guidance. The transformation begins when we shift from making decisions primarily through mental analysis to including the heart's intelligence as an equal partner. This doesn't mean abandoning logic or reason, but rather enriching them with another dimension of knowing that perceives wholeness, relationship, and meaning in ways the analytical mind simply cannot access by itself. What's particularly fascinating is how differently these systems operate. The mind knows through separation, breaking things down, categorizing, comparing, and contrasting. The heart knows through connection, sensing resonance, feeling harmony, perceiving relationship. The mind excels at answering how and what, while the heart addresses why and who. Each brings essential wisdom, but our culture's overemphasis on rational intelligence has left many people disconnected from their heart's knowing. The revelatory aspect of heart intelligence is that it consistently guides us toward choices aligned with our deepest values rather than momentary preferences or social conditioning. While the mind can be easily swayed by external influences, social pressure, or immediate gratification, the heart naturally orients toward what holds true meaning and authentic fulfillment. It serves as an internal compass that remains reliable even when the mind becomes confused by competing priorities or complex considerations. Behind the scenes of heart intelligence lies its remarkable capacity to process information holographically rather than linearly. Where the mind analyzes one piece at a time in sequence, the heart can perceive complex patterns simultaneously, integrating multiple streams of information into coherent understanding. This capacity becomes particularly valuable in navigating relationships, ethical dilemmas, or significant life decisions where purely analytical approaches often fall short. The journey toward integrating heart intelligence involves practices that quiet the dominant mind enough to hear the heart's subtler voice. Meditation, contemplative movement, time in nature, artistic expression, or simply pausing to feel rather than think when facing important choices. As this integration deepens, decision-making transforms from mental struggle to a more fluid discernment that draws on both systems of knowing. What emerges through this partnership is wisdom that neither heart nor mind could access alone, a balanced intelligence that brings both clarity and compassion, both discernment and empathy, both focus and openness. Decisions guided by this integrated awareness tend to create outcomes that serve not just immediate needs, but long-term well-being, not just individual interests, but collective harmony. If you've experienced moments of clarity that came not through analytical thinking, but through a deeper knowing that simply felt right, perhaps guiding an important life decision or revealing truth beyond logic, share in the comments, "My heart knows what my mind cannot," and describe how this different kind of intelligence has guided you when rational analysis reached its limits. Through our exploration of heart-centered intelligence, we naturally encounter another transformative dimension of the spiritual journey: gratitude as a consistent practice rather than an occasional response. While most people think of gratitude as a fleeting emotion that arises when something good happens, the mindset revelation here involves recognizing it as a deliberate orientation that we can cultivate regardless of external circumstances. This practice, quite literally, rewires both our neural pathways and energetic patterns, creating an upward spiral of appreciation that transforms how we experience reality. What makes gratitude so powerful is that it directly counteracts our brain's natural negativity bias, that evolutionary tendency to scan for threats, problems, and lack. This ancient survival mechanism, while once essential, now often creates unnecessary suffering by keeping us hyper-focused on what's wrong rather than what's right. Regular gratitude practice doesn't deny challenges, but creates a balanced perspective that also acknowledges the gifts, resources, and opportunities that simultaneously exist. Think about how dramatically different the same circumstance can feel, depending on your focus. A rainy day can be experienced as an inconvenient disruption or a nourishing gift to thirsty plants. A challenging conversation can be seen as stressful conflict or valuable opportunity for growth. A physical limitation can feel like cruel restriction or invitation to develop different capacities. Gratitude doesn't change what is, but fundamentally transforms your relationship with it. Behind the scenes of this practice, Fascinating transformations occur at multiple levels. Neuroscience research shows that consistent gratitude literally reshapes brain function, strengthening neural pathways associated with positive emotion and well-being, while weakening those linked to anxiety and rumination. On an energetic level, gratitude shifts your vibrational frequency from contracted states like fear, lack, and separation to expanded states like appreciation, abundance, and connection. The revelatory aspect of gratitude practice that many miss is that it works not because of magical thinking, but through attention management. What we consistently focus on expands in our experience, not because reality changes to match our thoughts, but because our perception filters determine what we notice and what we overlook. When gratitude becomes your default orientation, you naturally begin perceiving opportunities, connections, and resources that were always present but previously invisible to your problem-focused attention. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how gratitude naturally leads us into what might be the most powerful spiritual realization of all: the transformative power of fully inhabiting the present moment. While past and future exist as mental constructs, the present moment is the only place where life actually happens, the only point where creative power can be accessed, the only dimension where authentic choice exists. Most people spend remarkably little time truly present in the now. Their attention constantly ricochets between past memories, future projections, mental narratives, and endless distractions. This chronic absence from the present creates a peculiar kind of suffering. We miss the richness of our actual lives while chasing phantom experiences in imagined futures or reliving stories from the past. We're physically here, but mentally elsewhere, creating a subtle but persistent sense of disconnection from reality itself. The mindset transformation begins with recognizing presence not as a technique to occasionally practice, but as our natural state when mental distractions subside. Like the blue sky that's always there behind passing clouds, presence is your fundamental condition beneath the temporary weather of thoughts. You don't need to create presence through effort. You simply need to notice the awareness that's already here, that's reading these words right now, that's been here your entire life. What's particularly fascinating about presence is how it immediately shifts your relationship with time. When fully immersed in the now, time paradoxically seems to both expand and dissolve. Moments take on a rich depth and fullness, while the usual sense of rushing toward the next thing subsides. Athletes call this the zone. Artists know it as flow state, but these are just different names for the natural experience of undivided attention in the present. The impact of this presence touches everything. Anxiety diminishes when we're no longer mentally living in fearful futures. Relationships deepen when we're genuinely available rather than mentally elsewhere. Creativity flourishes when we access the spacious awareness where inspiration naturally arises. Even physical experiences intensify as we fully inhabit bodily sensations rather than thinking about them. The journey toward greater presence isn't about forcing the mind to be still, but rather about cultivating fascination with what's actually happening now. This might be as simple as fully feeling the sensations of your breath, noticing the play of light in your environment, or giving complete attention to whoever you're with. These aren't spiritual techniques, but invitations back to reality, to the only moment that ever exists. If you've experienced moments of extraordinary presence, perhaps during intense physical activity, creative engagement, intimate connection, or natural beauty, where time seemed to alter and experience became unusually vivid and real, share in the comments. I've touched timelessness, and describe what shifted in your perception when you fully inhabited that moment, free from mental distraction. Through our exploration of present moment awareness, we naturally discover another dimension of spiritual maturity, the integration of apparent opposites that most seekers initially try to resolve through elimination rather than embrace. The mindset revolution here involves recognizing that wisdom doesn't come from choosing light over shadow, strength over vulnerability, or doing over being, but rather from honoring the necessary dance between these complementary forces within the wholeness of life. Our conditioning often pushes us toward false choices. We must be either spiritual or worldly, either compassionate or boundaried, either spontaneous or disciplined. Yet behind these seeming oppositions lies a profound truth. Authentic wholeness emerges not through rejecting one pole for the other, but through holding both simultaneously in a higher synthesis. Think of how a tree needs both sunshine and darkness, both flexible branches and stable roots, both outward expansion and inward contraction to thrive. These aren't contradictions, but complementary aspects of a single living system. The journey toward this integration often begins with the uncomfortable recognition of how fragmented our approach has been. We've created inner civil wars by rejecting aspects of ourselves that didn't fit our spiritual ideals, perhaps judging our ambition as unspiritual, our anger as negative, or our need for rest as unproductive. Yet these rejected qualities inevitably express themselves through shadow manifestations precisely because we've refused to consciously integrate them. What's particularly fascinating about polarity integration is how it transforms our relationship with life's inevitable tensions. Rather than experiencing opposites as problems to solve or conflicts to resolve, we begin recognizing them as creative tensions that generate energy, depth, and dimensionality. Like the positive and negative poles of a battery create electrical current, the dynamic interplay between complementary forces creates the very energy that powers growth and evolution. Behind the scenes of this integration lies a profound revelation. What appears contradictory at one level of consciousness becomes complementary at a higher level. The mind that seeks consistency through elimination cannot comprehend how apparent opposites might coexist, but the heart intuitively recognizes their necessary relationship. This understanding doesn't come through intellectual analysis, but through lived experience of holding seemingly incompatible truths simultaneously. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this integration of polarities manifests in perhaps our most significant arena for spiritual growth: our relationships with others. When approached consciously, relationships become extraordinary, mirrors that reflect both our deepest gifts and our most challenging patterns, offering unparalleled opportunities for self-knowledge and evolution. The transformative insight here involves recognizing that others aren't primarily sources of fulfillment for our needs, but rather catalysts for our awakening. Each person we encounter, from intimate partners to casual acquaintances, from supportive allies to challenging adversaries, reflects something about our own consciousness that's seeking recognition, healing, or expression. This doesn't diminish the inherent value of connection, but rather reveals its deeper purpose beyond mere companionship or validation. What makes relationships such powerful mirrors is their uncanny ability to activate precisely what needs attention within us. The qualities that most attract or repel us in others often reflect aspects of ourselves we're either drawn to cultivate or trying to deny. The behaviors that trigger our strongest reactions usually touch unhealed wounds or unintegrated aspects of our psyche. Even the dynamics that repeatedly manifest across different relationships reveal patterns we're being invited to recognize and transform. The journey toward conscious relationship begins with a fundamental shift in orientation, from seeking others to complete us, to approaching connections as sacred opportunities for mutual growth. This doesn't mean relationships become clinical self-improvement projects, but rather that we bring a quality of presence and awareness to them that allows their transformative potential to unfold naturally. What's particularly revolutionary about this approach is how it transforms conflict and challenge from problems to be avoided into valuable catalysts for evolution. When someone triggers intense emotion in you, rather than immediately blaming them or defending yourself, you can pause and ask, what is this interaction revealing about me? What part of myself am I meeting through this person? This simple but profound shift turns every difficult exchange into an opportunity for deeper self-understanding. The revelatory aspect of relationship as mirror that many spiritual teachings miss is that it works in both directions simultaneously. While others reflect aspects of your consciousness, you're simultaneously mirroring dimensions of theirs. This creates a dynamic field where mutual awakening becomes possible, where both parties can grow through the reflection they offer each other, especially when they approach the connection with awareness rather than reactivity. This conscious approach doesn't guarantee comfortable relationships. In fact, it often reveals uncomfortable truths we might prefer to avoid, but it creates authentic connections built on truth rather than projection, mutual growth rather than mutual dependency, and genuine appreciation rather than idealization. The depth and fulfillment possible through these conscious connections far exceeds what's available through relationships based primarily on need fulfillment or role performance. If you've experienced a relationship that served as a powerful mirror for your growth, whether by reflecting shadow aspects you needed to integrate or by revealing gifts you hadn't fully claimed, share in the comments, "I've seen myself through others," and describe what this reflection revealed that might have remained invisible without that relationship catalyst. Through our exploration of conscious relationships, we naturally encounter another profound dimension of spiritual wisdom, the rhythm of creation that pulses through all of existence. The mindset revolution here involves recognizing that life doesn't move in straight lines toward fixed destinations, but rather in rhythmic cycles of expansion and contraction, creation and dissolution. The cosmos itself breathes in this pattern. Stars are born and die, galaxies form and disperse, universes expand and contract. This isn't random chaos, but a sacred choreography that reveals profound wisdom when we learn to dance with its timing. Nature embodies this rhythm with exquisite precision, the waxing and waning of the moon, the turning of seasons, the cycles of growth and rest that govern all living things. A seed doesn't immediately become a mature tree. It undergoes precise phases of germination, growth, flowering, fruiting, and release. The journey contains necessary periods of dormancy and activation, of visible progress and invisible preparation. Nothing in nature bypasses these rhythms, yet we humans often resist them, expecting constant expansion, perpetual productivity, and linear advancement. The transformative insight comes when we recognize these same patterns operating in our personal journeys, in creative projects, relationships, spiritual development, even health cycles. Every authentic creation follows this natural sequence. Conception, the initial spark; gestation, invisible development; birth, emergence into form; growth, development and refinement; maturation, fullness of expression; completion, fulfillment of purpose; and release, letting go into dissolution. Understanding these phases helps us recognize when to initiate, when to nurture, when to push forward, when to harvest, and perhaps most challenging for our action-oriented culture, when to rest in the fertile void. Behind the scenes of this rhythmic understanding lies a profound revelation. What appears as emptiness, stagnation, or ending is actually an essential phase of renewal. Just as winter's dormancy prepares for spring's rebirth, periods of apparent nothingness in our lives often serve as the necessary incubation for what comes next. These fallow times aren't failures to be overcome, but sacred intervals to be honored, times when the visible ceases so the invisible can work its alchemy. What's particularly fascinating is how our resistance to certain phases creates unnecessary suffering. We fight against endings, resist periods of incubation, rush through transitions, and exhaust ourselves trying to maintain constant productivity. Yet when we align with these natural rhythms, we discover a profound ease, knowing when to act and when to wait, when to speak and when to listen, when to build and when to release. This timing isn't arbitrary, but arises from attunement to the inherent intelligence that orchestrates all of existence. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how these cosmic rhythms express through our most immediate vehicle of experience, the physical body itself. Perhaps the most revolutionary shift in spiritual understanding involves recognizing that true awakening isn't about transcending or escaping the body, but rather fully embodying consciousness within it. For centuries, many traditions mistakenly emphasized spirit over matter, creating a false hierarchy that treated the physical as something to overcome rather than the sacred vessel through which spirit expresses. The transformative revelation here involves understanding that the body isn't an obstacle to spiritual realization, but the very ground where it flowers. Rather than trying to escape physical existence, embodied spirituality invites us to bring full presence to our sensory experience, to feel the miracle of breath, to sense the intelligence of our cells, to experience the wisdom that flows through our nervous system, to honor the emotions that move through our tissues. The body isn't separate from consciousness, but one of its most beautiful expressions. What makes this embodied approach so revolutionary is how it heals the artificial split between heaven and earth that has dominated much of spiritual thought. Instead of seeking enlightenment somewhere up there, we discover it flowing through our very veins, speaking through our intuitive hunches, revealing itself through the intelligence of our immune system, and dancing through our sensory experiences. The divine doesn't need to be imported from elsewhere because it already infuses every cell. The journey toward embodied spirituality often begins by simply bringing awareness to physical sensations without judgment, feeling the weight of your body against the chair, noticing the texture of your breath, sensing the subtle energies flowing through your hands. This isn't about analyzing or controlling the body, but rather listening to its wisdom with reverence. The body speaks a profound language of sensation, emotion, and intuitive knowing that complements and balances the mind's conceptual understanding. Behind the scenes of this embodied awakening lies a beautiful paradox. The more fully we inhabit our physical experience, the more we transcend the limitations of separate identity. As presence permeates our sensory awareness, boundaries between inner and outer begin to dissolve. We discover that the body isn't a container that separates us from the world, but rather the sacred bridge that connects us with it. Through fully embodied presence, we don't escape the physical. We discover its true nature as consciousness in form. If you've experienced moments of profound embodiment, perhaps during movement practices, intimate connection, creative expression, or simply moments of extraordinary presence in your physical experience, share in the comments, "I am consciousness in form," and describe how that embodied awareness shifted your understanding of spirituality beyond intellectual concepts into lived experience. Through our exploration of embodied spirituality, we naturally encounter another dimension of the awakening journey that requires perhaps the greatest courage of all, authentic expression of our genuine nature in a world that often rewards conformity. The mindset revolution here involves recognizing that true authenticity isn't about rebellion or individualism for its own sake, but rather alignment with our deepest knowing, even when it differs from consensus reality. Around us, This isn't about creating an identity through opposition, but about allowing our essential nature to shine through without distortion. Most people unconsciously adopt performative layers throughout their lives. Ways of speaking, thinking, behaving, and even feeling that they've internalized from family, culture, education, and social groups. These adaptations often helped us belong and survive, but they create a profound disconnection from our authentic core. The journey toward authenticity involves gently peeling away these accumulated masks to reveal the genuine being beneath them. What makes this process so challenging is that it requires us to risk disapproval, misunderstanding, and sometimes even rejection from others. Our nervous systems are wired for connection and belonging, making the prospect of standing alone in our truth genuinely threatening at a biological level. Yet behind this fear lies a profound revelation. The connection that comes through authentic expression creates far deeper bonds than the approval gained through performance and people-pleasing. Behind the scenes of authenticity lies an interesting paradox. The more fully we express our unique individuality, the more we discover our universal connectedness. Genuine self-expression isn't self-centered, but rather self-transcending, as it brings forth the particular melody that only we can contribute to life's symphony. This isn't about becoming special, but about honoring the specific way. Consciousness has shaped itself through your unique vessel. The transformative impact of authentic living touches everything. Creativity flourishes when no longer constrained by concerns about how it will be received. Relationships deepen through the vulnerability of being truly seen. Purpose clarifies as we align with genuine calling rather than prescribed paths. Even physical well-being responds as the energy previously used to maintain false personas becomes available for vitality and presence. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring what often serves as the initial catalyst for this authentic unfolding, the transformative dimension of suffering itself. While our comfort-oriented culture tends to view suffering as something to be avoided at all costs, wisdom traditions across history have recognized its potential as a powerful awakening force. This doesn't mean suffering is necessary or should be glorified, but rather that challenges, when approached consciously, can crack open the egoic shell that constrains our awareness. What's particularly fascinating is how suffering often initiates the spiritual journey precisely when comfort no longer suffices. When everything works according to plan, we rarely question our fundamental assumptions about reality, identity, or purpose. It's when our carefully constructed worldviews collapse through loss, illness, relationship dissolution, or existential crisis that we're forced to look deeper. These disruptions create cracks in our normal functioning through which greater dimensions of being can reveal themselves. The transformative insight here involves recognizing that what appears as breakdown may actually be breakthrough in disguise. The Chinese character for crisis combines the symbols for danger and opportunity, perfectly capturing this dual nature. The very experiences that most challenge our existing structures also create openings for new consciousness to emerge. Like a seed that must crack its shell to sprout, our protective ego constructs often need to be disrupted before authentic growth can occur. Behind the scenes of suffering's catalytic power lies a profound mechanism. Difficulty strips away the non-essential, revealing what truly matters. When comfort and security are removed, we discover what remains, the core values, connections, and truths that form our authentic foundation. This clarification process, while painful, creates an extraordinary opportunity to rebuild our lives on more genuine ground. What transforms suffering from merely painful to genuinely evolutionary is the quality of awareness we bring to it. When approached unconsciously, challenges can create bitterness, contraction, and deeper entrenchment in limited identity. But when met with presence and openness, these same difficulties become doorways to expansion. The difference isn't in what happens to us, but in how we metabolize the experience, whether we use it as evidence for our victimhood narrative or as catalyst for our awakening. The revelatory aspect of conscious suffering that many spiritual teachings miss is that the goal isn't to transcend difficulties, but to transform them through engagement. The awakened life isn't free from challenge, but relates to challenge differently, finding the gift within the struggle, the wisdom within the wound, the opportunity within the obstacle. This alchemical approach doesn't deny pain, but discovers its purpose within the larger tapestry of existence. If you've experienced how a challenging period in your life ultimately catalyzed profound growth or awakening, perhaps cracking open perspectives that comfort would never have disturbed, share in the comments, "My breakdown became breakthrough," and describe how suffering served as the doorway to dimensions of understanding that might have remained inaccessible without that catalyst. Through our exploration of how suffering catalyzes growth, we naturally discover another profound dimension of spiritual practice, the transformative power of creative expression when it emerges from inner stillness. The mindset revolution here involves recognizing creativity not merely as production of art or content, but as a sacred channel through which universal intelligence flows into form. When we create from this centered space rather than from ego ambition, something extraordinary happens. We become vessels for wisdom that transcends our personal limitations. Most people approach creativity from a place of doing, striving, planning, controlling the outcome, but the deepest creative flow emerges paradoxically through non-doing, through allowing rather than forcing, through receiving rather than manufacturing. This receptive creativity doesn't mean passivity, but rather a dynamic partnership with something greater than our individual minds. It's the difference between wrestling ideas into existence and midwifing what's naturally emerging through us. Think about those rare moments of effortless creative flow, when time seems to disappear, when ideas arrive fully formed, when your hands seem guided by an intelligence beyond conscious thought. These aren't anomalies, but glimpses of our natural creative state, when the controlling mind temporarily steps aside. In these moments, we're experiencing direct communion with the creative force that flows through all existence. Behind the scenes of this conscious creativity lies a fascinating truth. Your unique creative expression isn't separate from universal creativity, but rather its particular manifestation through your specific vessel. Like how white light refracts through a prism into distinct colors, the unified field of consciousness expresses uniquely through each being. Your authentic creative voice isn't something you need to invent, but rather something to uncover as you remove the blocks and conditioning that obscure it. What transforms creativity from mere production to spiritual practice is the quality of presence you bring to it. Whether you're writing, painting, cooking, gardening, coding, or arranging flowers, any creative act becomes meditation when approached with full awareness. The impact extends far beyond the creation itself to transform the creator. Through this engaged presence, we discover dimensions of ourselves that remain inaccessible to analytical thinking alone. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring what all these spiritual revelations ultimately point toward: the profound understanding that the entire spiritual journey isn't about becoming something new, but remembering our true nature. This might be the most revolutionary insight of all, completely inverting how we typically approach growth and transformation. Rather than striving to improve ourselves or add qualities we lack, authentic awakening involves uncovering what has always been present beneath the layers of conditioning and forgetting. The journey of remembering begins with the recognition that beneath accumulated identities, beliefs, wounds, and patterns lies our essential being. already whole, already connected, already free. This isn't a philosophical concept, but a directly accessible experience that occasionally breaks through in moments of profound presence, deep meditation, or spontaneous awakening. The glimpses may be brief, but they reveal what exists timelessly at our core. What makes this remembering so challenging is that we've been taught to seek outside ourselves for what can only be found within. We chase experiences, achievements, relationships, or spiritual states, hoping they'll bring the wholeness that actually constitutes our original nature. It's like searching the entire world for your glasses while they rest on top of your head. The very seeking reinforces the illusion that what we're looking for is somewhere else, when in fact it's what's looking. The transformative revelation here is that awakening isn't a distant goal to be achieved through years of spiritual practice, but rather the natural recognition of what has never been absent. This doesn't mean practices are unnecessary. They serve the essential purpose of clearing the obstructions that prevent this recognition, but it fundamentally shifts our relationship with the path. We're not climbing a mountain to reach the summit, but rather removing the clouds that obscure the view of what's always been here. Behind the scenes of this remembering lies a beautiful paradox. The more deeply we journey toward our essential nature, the more universal it reveals itself to be. What seemed most personal becomes most shared. What appeared as individual discovery reveals itself as collective awakening. We discover that the consciousness we've been seeking isn't limited to our personal experience, but is the very ground in which all experience appears. If you've experienced moments of remembering your true nature, perhaps glimpses where the separate self dissolved and you recognize something timeless at your core, share in the comments, "I remember who I am," and describe what that recognition felt like compared to the usual sense of identity. How did it shift your understanding of what the spiritual journey is actually about? As we come to the close of our journey together today, I hope these insights have touched something deep within you, perhaps awakening memories of truths your soul has always known. This exploration isn't just theoretical philosophy, but a living invitation to remember who you truly are beneath all the layers of forgetting. I've shared these revelations because they've profoundly transformed my own understanding of what it means to be fully alive and present in this human experience. If you've resonated with this perspective and want to continue exploring these dimensions of consciousness together, I'd love to have you join our community by subscribing to this channel. Each week, we dive into different aspects of this awakening journey, always grounded in both ancient wisdom and practical application. The conversation doesn't end here. In fact, it's just beginning. If these ideas have stirred something within you, I'd love to hear your reflections. Leave a comment with the phrase, "My soul remembers," and share which insight resonated most deeply with your own experience. Your perspective enriches our collective understanding in ways you might not even realize. If you found value in today's exploration, a simple like helps others discover this content who might be on a similar path of remembering. It's a small gesture that creates ripples of connection beyond what we can see. There's a natural continuation to today's journey waiting for you right here. A video that explores how these spiritual revelations can be integrated into everyday challenges and relationships. Click and join me there as we bridge the gap between profound insight and lived experience. Because awakening isn't complete until it transforms how we move through our ordinary moments. Until we meet again, remember, the journey isn't about becoming something you're not, but remembering who you've always been. The wisdom you seek is already whispering within you.